Welcome everybody. This is my presentation, Somatic Practices to Foster Radical Queer Self-Love. I am Dr. Nikki Hurlis, pronouns she, her. I'm a licensed professional counselor and approved clinical supervisor through the NBCC. And I'll tell you a little more about myself on the next slide. This is my presentation for SAGE's virtual conference this semester, 2025, Haunted and Healing. And I apologize for not having a video picture-in-picture as I'm presenting. I have some photos of myself so you know what I look like, but I couldn't figure out how to get a good video overlay on my slides without blocking out some of the content. So that's why you can't see me in action. But here I am. I am a white, queer, middle-class, able-bodied, cisgender woman of Celtic descent, and I'm currently living on the unceded lands of the Nanticoke, Piscataway, Powhatan peoples, amongst other tribes that were historically here on the eastern shore of Maryland, where I currently live. And I earned my PhD in counselor education and supervision in 2021 from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Currently, I'm a part-time trauma-informed counselor licensed in Missouri and Texas, and an undergrad professor here in Maryland. My school is a small liberal arts college called Washington College. And the courses that I've taught, both at the graduate and undergraduate level, include trauma and resilience, multicultural counseling, human sexuality, and so a lot of my content and experience from those classes has informed my approach to this presentation. And my research interests include holistic treatments, somatic treatments, LGBTQ+ identity, traumatic stress, attachment, things like this. And I'm also curious about how holistic and these anti and decolonial restorative practices can help us with community reform and building and rebuilding interpersonal connections. Society in America, at least, is grounded in an epidemic of disconnection based in layers of oppression, white supremacy, ableism, etc., etc. And so I'm really curious how more traditional holistic and somatic practices can help us resist those forms of oppression and build a truly mutually supportive community. And today we're going to be talking about how radical self-love can help us, right? In the context of embodiment, mental health, and queer theory, what really is radical self-love? We will talk about somatic awareness practices and how they contribute to radical self-love and self-care. And we'll explore some practical somatic techniques, interoception, breathwork, movement, to help enhance self-awareness. So there is a experiential component to the presentation today as well. And the beauty of having a pre-recorded session is that you can pause and take your time with those if you would like. So just a quick disclaimer, my presentation is going to talk a lot about regulation techniques, and I just want to say that dysregulation in an oppressive and violent society that we exist in is normal. Regulation techniques are not intended to create complacency or a kind of passive acceptance or non-reaction to this violent system. But instead add more tools to your toolbox to help you increase your resilience and sustainable activism. And so, at least in my approach to holistic and somatic practices, it's not intended to keep us all super calm and chill and non-reactive, rather just to add some options to your self-care toolbox so that you have more empowerment and choice. And this can help you sustain action and whatever form that takes. And so activism might look like political organizing, teaching, counseling, lobbying, fundraising, and even simply resting, connecting with your community, creating art, or just existing. Okay, I don't want to give the idea that activism has to be productive and doing all the time. Sometimes just your existence is radical in and of itself, which is particularly true for the queer community. And a final note here, we are going to be talking a lot about the body, somatics, embodiment, awareness of body signals. And I'm not an expert on chronic illness and the role of embodiment within that population. So I just want to say that's outside the scope of this presentation. It does deserve its own focus and attention when we're having conversations about embodiment, because folks with chronic illness have a diverse relationship with their bodies. And so just noting that I'm aware that that's a special population, and I encourage listeners to seek out additional opportunities to learn more about that. Okay, so now that you're kind of oriented to what we're going to be focusing on today, I want to take a moment, just a few minutes, to offer a welcoming practice with supportive physical touch. And this exercise comes from Dr. Kristen Neff, who is famous for her work in self-compassion. I've got her website down here, specifically the page where this exercise comes from. So if you're curious to know more, I invite you to check that out. And so one way that we might care for ourselves, comfort ourselves, when we're feeling activated or disconnected is through self-touch. And this is going to activate our parasympathetic nervous system to help us feel safe and feel grounded. It might feel awkward or embarrassing. Your mind might come in and say, oh, this is silly, but your body is still going to experience it as supportive. And yeah, our skin is an incredibly sensitive, receptive organ. And so physical touch is going to help release the bonding hormone, oxytocin, even if it's just you and yourself, right? This is a way to soothe distressing emotions, provide a sense of security for the self. And so I invite you to get comfortable in your seat, wherever you are listening to this presentation or watching it, and just settle in for a moment. And as it feels right, try and take 2 to 3 deep and satisfying breaths. And I'm going to do this with you. And breathe naturally now. And perhaps you'd like to place a hand over your heart center, feeling the gentle pressure and warmth of your hand. If you wish, you can place both hands on your chest and just notice the difference between the feeling of 1 and 2 hands. You might also place a hand on your belly and just noticing the natural rising and falling of your body as you breathe in and out. And feel free to get creative with your hand placement, perhaps placing a hand on your cheek Gently stroking your arms, even crossing your arms and giving a gentle squeeze. And just noticing what this sensation is like. And you can linger here as long as you like, again, pausing the recording for as long as you need. And when you feel ready, coming back to your screen, back to the presentation, as we continue on, hopefully feeling more centered and present. Okay, so I'm going to provide a couple of slides of background information for you now. So SAGE identities, or sexual, affectional, intersex, and gender expansive identities, are often targeted by political backlash, violence, discrimination, misunderstanding, microaggressions. And these external forces can manifest as internalized shame, low self-esteem, poor body image, disordered eating, any number of ways that we can relate to our bodies and ourselves in a judgmental way. And these covert and overt messages about the value and acceptabilities of our bodies, particularly in the queer community, can often lead to a tense or even dysphoric relationship between the mind and the body. We might implicitly or explicitly believe that our bodies are evil or less than or abnormal. We know that the beauty industrial complex is going to be profiting off of our self-loathing. Every other day, there's a new part of the normal human body that is determined to be bad or needing to be fixed. And don't worry, there's a product that they're going to sell you for that. And yeah, capitalism runs off of our chronic dissatisfaction with self. We also are swimming in these colonial concepts of the gender binary, very rigid gender expression roles. Regardless of your gender identity or how you express it, you're probably not doing it good enough to meet the standards of white supremacist body and beauty expectations. And these are going to be grounded in fat phobia and ableism as well. We are not size inclusive in this country or really in the world. We look down on those with different abilities and disabilities, and all of these body-focused messages are potentially leading to this tension that we have with our bodies. And this can be conceptualized as a trauma response if we feel various emotions and sensations, reactions as a result of all of these cultural and societal factors. This can feel very overwhelming and distressing. And so the response might be to cut off awareness, right, for a greater sense of safety in our body and our minds. And this disconnection from body and self is a coping mechanism, right? It's a trauma response. And so I want to normalize that it's understandable and valid if you're resonating with some of these concepts of disconnection. We are taught and encouraged to disconnect, and so yeah, how can we try and adjust that? It's hard. And a lot of the ideas from this presentation are going to be based on author and activist Sonia Renee Taylor's book, The Body is Not an Apology. And I really recommend that book. It's wonderful. And it's not an academic text. So if you're burnt out with reading academic stuff, this is more accessible, I think. And Taylor talks about bodies as a site of political violence through harmful rhetoric, laws, social norms, all the things I mentioned on the previous slide. And she brings in some concepts of queer theory to challenge the hegemony, the dominance of cisnormativity and heteronormativity, and encouraging readers to break out of the dominant narratives about our bodies. And I found this really, really fascinating the first time I read this. And anytime we talk about somatics and relationships to the body, it's crucial to also consider a trauma-informed approach. And so understanding this disconnection and oppression that we're experiencing, how can we slowly learn to trust our bodies again and eventually experience authenticity, freedom, and joy and choice? It can take a lot of time, and it takes a foundation of safety within the body home, but also within our relationships in order to slowly build capacity for reconnection. And this might look like titration, which is a fancy word for just going slow, taking baby steps, going at the pace of your body rather than your mind's or society's expectations for how quickly you should be, quote unquote, fixing yourself. And so, yeah, slowing down is going to be an important part of this conversation too. And I do believe that somatics can transform one's connection to the self, particularly for LGBTQIAA plus people whose bodies have been politicized and marginalized, especially in this country. And so we're going to talk about it. What can somatics do for you? So self-love is a cornerstone of a positive relationship to the body. So what does this look like? Well, it can look like a reclamation of the body as a site of love and compassion, connection, joy, sacredness, and inner wisdom, as opposed to pain, evil, disconnection, unruliness, whatever the messages that we've been taught about our bodies, reclaiming it as our own and as a site of positivity. It can look like simple awareness, just building awareness of body signals to begin to speak the language of your body so that we can improve capacity to meet its needs and hold space for it. It can look like curiosity, desiring and awareness and understanding instead of avoidance and disconnection. And it's okay to go slow with this, right? We're not trying to jump into full body presence right away. Even if just for a few moments here and there, you're able to get curious about your experience, that can help you build capacity over time. And it might even look like sacredness. And we'll talk about this later in the presentation, but creating ritual, spiritual connection to self through somatic practices can also help reclaim the body as a site of compassion and joy. And so self-love is about reframing and reclaiming the body as a source of wisdom, healing, connection, self-understanding, as I've mentioned. Practices like interoception, just awareness of body signals, breathwork, mindful movement, right, can help us establish this connection to self and simply being and existing rather than doing all the time, right? So working towards self-acceptance and self-compassion to establish a foundation for this sacred radical self-love. That's really in contrast to these societal messages encouraging self-hatred. And I've got some research articles summarized here. This is not all of the research in this area, but I chose a handful of sources here. We do know that mindful movement has been positively correlated with stress reduction and improved self-image in queer youth. And so mindfulness in establishing that positive relationship to self has been shown. It also has been shown in adults, queer adults too. And then down here, self-compassion writing activity was shown to enhance body satisfaction in trans and non-binary people. And so again, bringing in self-compassion specifically towards the goal of enhancing body satisfaction for trans and non-binary people, that was an effective intervention. And so, yeah, we know that this stuff works. It's effective. If you're curious about some other research, I will have my references at the end of this presentation. And I found this quote in my research. I wanted to share it with you all. Queerness and somatics are both in part about embodiment. And embodiment can be defined as an external expression of self that is congruent with the internal experience, right? So that Rogerian concept of congruence brought in here. And queer folks pursue this congruence often in opposition to dominant narratives about the right way to be. Living more fully into our identities isn't easy. It often comes with a variety of costs, but we keep doing it and we keep celebrating each other for it. Because the force that guides us into becoming more of ourselves is ancient and powerful. It's the force of life itself, longing to experience more of what is possible. And the speaker is saying, that's how I relate to queer and trans brilliance, the endless, curious, iterative seeking of life force energy moving through our individual bodies, trying to be expressed in as many different ways as possible. And practicing somatics is coming into deeper contact with that inner aliveness. Okay, we can learn to feel more of ourselves, which is quite an undertaking in our culture, which usually frames the body as fickle, uncooperative, this burdensome vessel for the mind to be kept at a distance lest it impact our ability to function. But the body is not separate from ourselves. The body is the very instance of our aliveness. It is the domain of our dreaming, our actions, identities, our relationships, and our way to the future. And this is a quote from a queer somatic coach named Kamo Stevens, and their website is here. I came across this in my research and just really resonated with it, and really appreciated the attention to how queerness and somatics intersect. And so I hope this resonates with you as well. And another succinct way to summarize what I'm trying to convey in this presentation, I'm going to show you a video from this speaker and activist and actor, also a comedian, Alok Vaid Menon. Their website is here if you're curious. Let me bring up their video here.
Is to have an understanding that the body was merely a container for the soul. Now I understand the body as the soul. And I'm really informed by Celtic philosophy, iconic work there.
Come on.
There's a guy named John O'Donoghue, and what he basically says is the face is the closest evidence we have of the soul. The reason why all of our faces are different is because our souls are different.
Ooh.
And he describes the face as where the soul is peeking out, right? And he describes actually his spirituality as a project of recognizing the godliness of the material world. So rather than heaven being a destination or structure beyond, heaven is here. And in particular, heaven is available to us in the grass and the water and the mountains. The natural is the divine, and we are part of that, right? It's actually easier for me to understand the body as a mere vessel, because then I could understand the body just as having utility, right? And that's what we've been taught our bodies are. They're instruments to do, not instruments to be. They're instruments to accomplish, to work, to build, to create capital, to be capital. But, okay, how do I develop an understanding of my body that is okay with its just being, not doing?
Okay. So there's a lot of really cool ideas in that video, so feel free to pause and jot down any notes or reactions that you have. But I really love how they conceptualize the body as a divine experience, right? A divine being. The divine is within us. And it's okay if you have a different view of spirituality and religion, but just, for transparency's sake, that this is how I'm conceptualizing that sacred relationship to self, recognizing life source energy and divinity within the self and the body. Okay, and here is a chaotic web of how I'm connecting all of the concepts here. We'll start up at the top left, talked about all of these societal factors and systemic factors that are influencing this sense of separation from and demonization of the body, which is a disconnection from this part of ourselves. And so I'm making the argument that through somatic practices, practiced in a trauma informed way, can support queer authenticity and liberation, including self compassion, self love, connection to self, joy, freedom, and seeing the self and the body as sacred. And all of these concepts are interrelated here. And so, yeah, this is a quick summary of what I'm trying to convey to you all today. Oops. And just bringing it back to kind of the purpose of regulation techniques and somatics, I want to talk about the window of tolerance here. So this is a graphic that shows what's called the window of tolerance. This is a common concept in a lot of somatic theories and approaches. And so in the middle here in this window, this is where we are able to fully tolerate our experience. We are feeling present, calm, and engaged. We are thinking clearly, we can make decisions, we are alert, we are able to connect with people. And this is good, right? This is where choice and empowerment are most possible. When we feel activated, when we are in fight or flight, we are entering hyper arousal at the top. High energy, irritability, panic, startle response, difficulty concentrating, right? This activation. Okay. And then on the flip side, if we are in shutdown mode, we might feel depressed, numb, withdrawn, isolated, passive. There might be shame involved. And this is the hypoarousal state, kind of deactivation. And both of these states are survival mechanisms, right? And it's actually a part of a healthy nervous system to be able to move through all three of these levels multiple times a day. It becomes a challenge when we get stuck in this hypo or hyper aroused states. Okay, so the purpose of regulation techniques is not only to calm and help you kind of neutralize valid emotional and physical responses. We're not trying to create passivity, but it's really to help you build awareness, choice, and empowerment in understanding your body, mind, and spirit so that you can be present and grounded in how you're reacting to your world and to your responses to the world. Okay. And so we're not intending or suggesting that we have to stay in this middle part 24/7. That's not possible. That's not even really desirable. We need to be able to respond to our environment in a variety of ways and recognize when that's happening. And then also, if we choose, know the strategies to get us upregulated or downregulated back into this window. And it's a matter of choice, right? We don't want to be hijacked by our responses, and we don't want to feel stuck. And so, just reiterating that that's the purpose of the techniques in this presentation. And so somatics in counseling, it's for everyone. Of course, we might consider how these practices can help clients enhance self-care, reduce burnout and stress, and cultivate compassionate relationships with themselves and others. That's a wonderful goal. And as counselors, as mental health professionals, we are also human beings and we are a part of the therapeutic relationship. And I do think it's crucial that we have a similar compassionate relationship with ourselves. And so you can use these techniques to build a greater presence with yourself and your clients before, during, and after sessions. This is going to help you with capacity to sit with clients, attuning to them. And so, yeah, we can couch it in terms of practicing self-care for the betterment of client care, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to always be in service of our clients. You can take these activities and ideas and use them just for yourself. That is totally fine. You can use it for students too. But yeah, the point is you matter and your relationship to self matters, even if it's not specifically intended to eventually benefit somebody else. Okay, so how do we do this? What are some of the strategies that we can do to help us build this relationship with our bodies? So, first and foremost, embodiment. This is really defined as the practice of attending to sensations, just body awareness. Okay, this is our guiding compass to help us feel more in charge of our lives, right? Somatic awareness can provide a foundation for empathy for self or others, help you make healthy decisions, and it's giving important feedback about relationships. Okay, so the more familiar we are with our body signals, the more equipped we are to interpret them and make decisions about them. And so embodiment uses mindfulness and movement to foster awareness as a tool for healing. This is a quote from Dr. Arielle Schwartz, who is a somatic practitioner and psychologist, and I've got her website down here if you're curious about her. She's wonderful. Yeah, a lot of the ideas in my presentation are grounded in her work as well. And so embodiment, this can look like checking in with the self, simply noticing our breath, any areas of tension or peace that are present in the body. Where is our body making contact with our environment? Maybe a chair, maybe our feet on the floor, right? Maybe we can feel clothing contacting our skin. Maybe you're making contact with yourself if your legs are crossed, right? Noticing the sensation of the back of your knee touching the other leg. Perhaps your hands are clasped, right? So just noticing. This takes only a few moments to sit with, right? We're not trying to change, just simply be with the experience. We might consider welcoming or inviting these feelings, sensations, and whatever signals are coming up, welcoming them to the surface and allowing them to simply be. And so this can look like kind of saying silently to yourself, all feelings, all parts are welcome in this moment, and creating that sense of safety for your body to really express itself. And we might also include this acceptance stance, not having an agenda for the mindful experience, right? Just meeting it where it is, meeting your body where it is without trying to change or fix or reduce a feeling, even if it's painful, even if it's uncomfortable. It's a part of the full, authentic human experience to feel a wide range of emotions and sensations. And even if just for a moment, can you accept that they're there? And if you feel that you have capacity, maybe going a step further towards being curious about these feelings, these sensations. What are the specific qualities of the emotion, the sensation? Does it have a texture, a sound, a color? Does it have a size? Is it moving? Is it static? Things like this, getting creative about how you you explore and understand the experience. Considering if there might be an impulse, a physical gesture that goes with the feeling. For example, perhaps with an emotion of sadness, we feel a tightness in the chest, and a gesture that might go along with that is kind of a hunched over um, and a slumping of the shoulders, right? And if you feel okay with it, perhaps acting out that gesture and just noticing what that is like. Um, Perhaps asking yourself, what am I holding back that's been unfelt or unsaid, and helping that energy move through your body, even if just for a moment. And the intent here is to describe, not just analyze. Okay, so the practice of getting curious and descriptive is about staying as close to the experience as possible. Um, it's okay if your mind jumps in to analyze and create a story and a meaning, and just noticing that as well, but trying to come back to just tracking, making contact with, describing the experience, and allowing it to move through you, right? Really understanding that felt sense of the experience is going to be important for allowing your body to communicate with you in its own way. So simply giving it attention and allowing it to be without doing anything with it is transformative. Okay, so getting descriptive to meet your body's experience, naming it, moving through it, understanding it. And this person on the right side here, Jessamine Stanley, is a wonderful body inclusive yoga teacher and influencer, and her company is called Underbelly Yoga. So if you're curious about presence with self and yoga and movement in somatics, I recommend you check out her work. She's great. And so we have another experiential here. This is intended to be kind of a journaling exercise, but it's okay if you switch it up a little bit. And feel free to pause if needed during this slide and take your time with this. So just to begin, I invite you to consider these reflective points. If the mind is critical of the body will not make itself fully known. If the body fears the mind, it will not relax or open. If the mind can't or won't listen to the body might protest with symptoms, pain, kind of demanding attention from the mind. And so, keeping these in mind, I invite you to bring awareness to your body, right? Your breathing, your physical sensations, as you ask yourself the following questions. How does my mind relate to my body? How does my body relate to my mind? Got some examples here. Is my mind curious, accepting, critical, superior, demanding, etc. of the body? Does my mind have expectations for the body? Does my body feel safe in the care of my mind? Does my body trust my mind? Does my body feel that my mind listens to it? Does my body feel judged by my mind? Is my body afraid of my mind's criticism? And as you sit with these questions, just bring awareness to yourself. Notice what's arising within and try and attune to those messages that are coming from the body. Take as much time as you need to allow those answers to emerge coming from the body. I do invite you to write down anything that you sense or any messages that come up, and try not to censor or judge or analyze. But you also might consider tracking what your mind is doing as you sit with these questions. Is your mind narrating? Is your mind judging? Does your mind feel defensive? Perhaps it's quiet. And so just sitting with your experience for a few moments, noticing what arises. And feel free to pause the recording if needed. And when you feel complete, when you feel like you're done answering the questions, getting curious, I invite you to go inside again, right? Go inside that body awareness and thank your body and your mind for what they do for you, holding space for you, supporting you in each of their own ways, and just expressing gratitude for their presence and their knowledge and their wisdom. Okay. And just some further reflecting discussion questions. You're also welcome to write down your answers to these questions. Just generally, what did you notice during that exercise? What stood out to you, if anything? How would you describe the relationship between your body and mind? Does your mind jump in to tell a story about your experience? Did you kind of default to trying to analyze or change the experience? Or maybe not. And then where would you like the relationship between your body and mind to go? If you'd like it to be different, if you'd like it to be more accepting, perhaps somatic practices can help you get there over time. And these questions and the activity on the previous slide are borrowed from Atira Tan, and she is a somatic trauma specialist, educator, and activist who does a lot of work with trauma-informed counseling, plant medicine. Her website is here if you're curious to learn more. This is her photo. And so I recommend that you check out her works as well. Okay, so we've touched on noticing, building awareness, describing the experience. Where does self-love and sacredness come into the picture? So sitting with and describing your experience is kind of radical, right? It is against what we are taught. It is against the expected relationship that we have with our bodies and ourselves. And it's a resilience strategy. If we're collaborating with our bodies instead of punishing it, this is a form of radical self-love. And we can use this as a foundation to form a sacred relationship to the body. It does take practice to build this sacredness. So don't feel like it's going to happen overnight, right? But through regular time and energy devoted to yourself and your needs through the lens of somatics, over time, perhaps you can recognize the divine within yourself. And you deserve that. You deserve time and attention and devotion, and your body deserves that. And so self-care can be reframed as this kind of spiritual devotion to yourself as a divine being. But it doesn't have to be. We can take out this concept of spirituality and devotion and divinity. And perhaps it's just about establishing a regular self-care ritual. So feel free to play with how you're conceptualizing this. So how do we do it, right? Mindfulness is an important piece. Okay, so sensing the self, the environment. If we don't feel comfortable focusing on the self and that interoceptive awareness, the environment can also be a source of mindfulness. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we taste, smell, feel? We can do anything mindfully. We can mindfully eat, mindfully walk, mindfully breathe, mindfully notice whatever our body is doing, or whatever's happening in our environment. Okay, so go at your own pace, whatever feels safe and comfortable for yourself. And this is a trauma informed approach to mindfulness. Whoops. Intentional movement might also have this sacredness to it. Regular gentle exercise, restorative yoga, walking, stretching, right? We can have this approach of I am devoting movement and physical sensation, whatever it might be. I'm devoting this time to my body. I deserve this. We might also consider more traditional cultural practices like shaking, jumping, drumming circles, play, dance. Okay, seeing all of these as an exploration and an expression of creativity and a sacred wisdom within the body. And so anything can be ritualized with intentionality. Okay. A self care routine, something as simple as brushing your teeth, if done mindfully and with intention, can become a moment of awareness and a ritual. The use of sacred objects like candles, plants, crystals, mirrors, tarot, etc., can help kind of romanticize our connection to self and make it special, and kind of mark the significance of a self-care activity. Connection with nourishing supports can be a regular ritual. Social media hygiene, right? Creating a plan for disconnecting from media, from the internet, perhaps keeping your phone in a separate room or not beginning to scroll first thing in the morning, things like this. Caring for plants and time in nature. This can also involve caring for animals. This can help us connect to our place in nature as natural beings, as animals that are part of the ecosystem. And so, with intention, those ecotherapeutic activities can also be ritualized. And then practicing new thought patterns, building self compassion, expressing more gratitude for self and body, reframing the relationship between body and mind, and helping build the body's sense of safety with the mind. This is done over time with regular intention and care, and can also be a part of a sacred relationship and a sacred holding of the body. Curiosity is also potentially new. Instead of dismissing or rejecting sensations and emotions, perhaps we build capacity to get curious about what we're feeling over time. And all of these strategies, these approaches, even if you're not really changing what you're doing in the observational sense, if you're changing how you're thinking, how you're approaching yourself and others and the world, I'm conceptualizing that as a form of resistance, right? So again, radical self-love um, is radical, right? It is against expectation in a world that profits from our self-hatred and these rigid labels and categorization of self. So connecting to the body despite all of the reasons to disconnect is a form of resistance, right? Creating and maintaining an expansive, authentic sense of self, right? Expansive gender identity, gender expression. It doesn't even have to be gender based, it can be any part of you that feels authentic. Allowing that to exist is wonderful, right? Grounded in spiritual connection to self and others, a sense of peace, joy, rest, visibility, curiosity, surrender, grace, satisfaction, whatever words you'd like to describe the experience. Any form of resisting, a silencing, a censorship of self is resistance. And I say this fully recognizing that it might be a matter of safety for some folks to self-censor and not be able to fully realize their expansive sense of self, and so it has to be done intentionally. But perhaps even for a moment, whether it's privately or in session with clients or with trusted support systems, through somatic practices as a strategy, perhaps queer folk can experience acceptance and appreciation for their bodies. And this is a form of resistance, right? Yeah, and I also want to acknowledge the intersectionality of race and class and able-bodiedness that inform exactly how we are expressing resistance. So, yeah, if you are somebody of a privileged identity, just make sure you're not recommending resistance strategies to people of color or other marginalized identities that might not really be helpful and can even be harmful. So it's important to check yourself in that regard as well. Letting clients, letting students, letting mental health professionals decide how to proceed with this information in a way that best fits their needs and their cultural identities. And I just wanted to provide some additional resources because I've really only scratched the surface of somatic counseling and somatic strategies. So I mentioned Ariel Schwartz. Again, her website is here. She is also a yoga practitioner and she posts free yoga classes and meditations on her YouTube channel, which is listed here. So those are wonderful resources for exploring. While not a specific focus of this presentation, queer sex and queer pleasure is an important piece of embodiment and identity for the community. And so if you're curious to know more, there's some wonderful curated queer sex ed resources at this location here. And if you're interested in learning more about queer theory, Indiana University has a curated guide through their library with a lot of foundational queer theory texts. I have seen some resources connecting counseling, psychology, and mental health to queer theory. So yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to check out this guide. It's not specifically geared toward mental health professionals, but it might be a good starting point regardless. And again, here are some additional self-compassion practices from Kristen Neff. She does provide a lot of free activities that can be helpful for building that regular ritual, gratitude to self, right? Rebuilding, reclaiming that relationship to self, which research has shown has a lot of positive benefits. And I believe she also has some research findings on her website too. But you can look her up through your library or through Google Scholar, and she's a pretty prolific researcher too, Dr. Neff. And because our society is incredibly violent, I would be remiss if I didn't note some safety resources that might be helpful for you. SAGE has a list of public resources on their website that includes state-specific resources depending on your geographic location. And so wherever you live or your clients are living. It's great to familiarize yourself with these safety resources here. The Trevor Project also has a list of mental health resources, and they run this hotline support number, which is listed here. And then there are a couple national hotlines, hotline numbers as well. This first one is for anyone, and then there's also a youth specific talk line that are great to familiarize yourself with. And hopefully, you never need these for yourself or your clients, but they are there just in case. And here's a list of my references, and if you're curious about any of these, feel free to get in touch with me. And thank you so much for being here and spending time with me. Here's my email address if you'd like to get in touch. Please do. Please ask questions. Please leave comments. Yeah, I love connecting with people. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at this address here. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the Haunted and Healing Conference. And I'm looking forward to connecting with some of you in the future. All right. Thank you so much again, and go in peace.